I'm Bob Gordon from aroundthesound.com.au, and I'm in downtown Mount Lawley, or is it uptown Mount Lawley, with Danae Gibson and Chris the Chief Wheeldon from RTRFM 92.1, and they've been nice enough to allow me to sit in an announcer's seat, and they are the guests in their own home. How are you?
Going well.
Good, Bob.
Well, we're brought together here because we're in the Pines, which is, what is it, this one, the 25th, you're saying?
Yes. So it's the 25th. I mean, there's conjecture. There's conversations of whether Neon Picnic was considered a Pines and when exactly Pines started. But the great Dr. Adam Trainer, who did the research on RTR and the history of RTRFM for our exhibition last year in our 40th year, is pretty adamant and has concluded that 1993 was the first in the Pines. So take 2018 from 1993 and you get 25, don't you?
Right.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
I'd hazard to guess that the first one was 1994, actually.
No, maybe 94. Yeah, that would be right.
We leave him in charge of the important
Yeah.
things, but, you know.
Don't do the maths. Just do the words.
Okay.
Bob, that period of the 90s kind of blurs in a haze of good times.
Yeah.
So I think 94 was the first time I can remember being
Yeah,
in
it
the
was.
Pines.
It was 94.
Is
I was
94.
wrong.
Is that, well, if it's just like the 60s, if you can remember it.
Yeah,
Perhaps
we're
you
having a
remember.
good time.
Yeah. So yeah, I recall going to the first one in '94 in a Yummy Fur T-shirt, which says a lot about exactly what time it was, and I rocked up mid-afternoon, and I think Blue Tile Lounge were playing. What are your memories, and and the folklore you picked up along the way too, Chief, about the beginnings of In The Pines?
I remember there was a bit more room to dance back in the early days of In The Pines. I remember dancing to the Rosemary Beads, having a great time. Loved watching them play whenever they played. Couldn't get a coffee.
You get a beer though.
Yeah, could get a beer. Could have a drink. And it was a really social, good time to enjoy local music. Such fun.
Because it was a different time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, 94, I was still in primary school so just going into high school the next year in 95, and
Were you driving?
Oh, no, not yet.
Yeah, okay.
I was Ocean Reef Primary School. It was run like a ship. It's another story for another day. But the folklore I know about In The Pines is that it was put together. Kath Letch, who was the then general manager, had done Neon Picnic over a couple of years, one at Fremantle Arts Centre and then a couple at the Somerville. And she had a booking for it, and Neon Picnic the year before hadn't made enough money or was sort of on the edge of breaking even. And the station at that time was then independent from UWA, as far as I'm aware, so money was a commodity, and events was decided as the next avenue to make some money. So she had this booking at the Somerville. UWA said, yeah, you can go do what you want, that's fine. And she walked into the kitchen at the Sanders building and said, all right, I've got this booking to a couple of members, I think Ray Lyle, who's our current chairperson, and a fellow called Michael Roberts, and they sort of took it on themselves. So it was very much run by the Drive Time and Homegrown coordinators and collective.
The Goats of Joy.
And the Goats of Joy collective, and they sort of put everything together. This Michael Roberts fellow got the liquor license as opposed to it being run by the guild, and that was sort of the first time that I guess RTRFM took ownership of a complete event and said, right, this is everything that happens is going to be done by us. And you're right, 94 was, the first big day. It was 93, I think.
Yeah.
And people actually went to festivals to watch music as opposed to just go hang out with their friends, which would have been a nice thing to do, as both bands playing and also as organisers putting it up.
Well, outdoor festivals were, there weren't that many then, and that was in a recent site of like Australian made. It was like 86 or 87.
Yep.
And so people, they'd be put on and people would be like, why aren't these on all the time? And so like when In The Pines started, from my memory, as a young rock journalist, there was like big day out. It was literally this big day of the year, and then RTR had the gall to sort of do In The Pines, which was different to Neon Picnic. It wasn't just a name change, was it?
And it was different to the Big Day Out. The local acts on the Big Day Out were early in the morning it felt like in the backstage and really a kind of a sideline act. But In The Pines focused on the local music we already knew and loved at RTR. And it was one of those occasions where I was really proud that we were the sound alternative, because it felt like we were really focusing on that local homegrown music and putting the spotlight on it. In this incredible, one of the best parts of WA is our outdoor spaces, and we kind of led the way a little on that, I think. This was a time when we were still based physically on the UWA campus, but the other side, where the Somerville Auditorium was almost another world. And 25 years, such a lot has changed in the way we socialise, entertain ourselves, go out and about, and expect our entertainment to come to us. That I kind of liked it. You had to know it was on to go, but that meant you were probably an RTRFM listener and already well primed.
Well, I recall that it was sort of a bit of a coup that, like, this kind of rock gig or whatever was on the hallowed grounds of the Somerville Auditorium, and the place where the Perth International Arts Festival, its film season ran, and I recall that they literally had to clear the chairs out.
Yeah.
It was like only 1 week difference, and they had to scramble to get Eat, Drink, Man, Woman out of the projector or something, and that it was like, well, here we go. But then as it went on, it gave identity to Perth bands, I think, and through the way that music culture was moving and how RTR grew with it as a casual observer. It was part of like how RTR actually helped bands identify or become identities, I think, in a big way. Different to before.
Weirdly, not much has changed. We're still, the movie's finished on Sunday, so they're right now, as we speak, taking all the chairs out. And they'll be finished out on the Thursday before we put a marquee in. So, and the general concept of In The Pines has not changed, which I think is why people love it so much. That the same idea of bands playing back to back to back to back is still the same idea. We haven't grown it. It hasn't got more people go, and there's more food, and it's a bit slicker, and we social mediaize it, and we do a live broadcast and all that sort of stuff. But the same concept is still there, where people come, hang out with their friends, and watch bands one after the other, without having to move, without having to look at a map or anything like that, which is what other festivals kind of do. And I think that's why people love it so much, in that it's sort of the exact same as it was 25 years ago, and it hasn't had to change too much. It has had to change slightly, and we have to offer different types of beer and food and make sure that...
And coffee.
But the concept of it is still exactly the same, which is a celebration of local music, and it's probably always has been a snapshot of the year before.
Absolutely.
What's happened in music the year before.
I love that you go from one act to another, and if you're not an aficionado or a classic music nerd, you can still go and experience a full range of music.
And you'll learn a lot in a day, which is great.
Yeah.
And if you can't go, you can listen via the wireless, which is pretty special too.
Exactly, yeah.
It's been lovely in that in recent years you've been able to embrace some of the, you could say, icons from previous years, and sometimes there have been bands who have reformed.
Yeah.
Or just bands who are still around. And the other nice thing is that you see band members whose kind of band that they were going to have a crack with might be 2 or 3 bands ago, the one that they had the shot with, but they just love music and they keep playing, and sometimes they end up in different bands out in the Pines again.
Yeah. Well, that was a conscious decision. Sort of 5 years ago we had the 20th, and that was very much, we wanted to do a retrospective, so it was a lot of bands that were around Perth over the last 20 years or so. So then after that we did make a conscious decision to say, all right, well, each year let's try and have a couple of reform bands to make it quite special. So last year, Institute Polaire was one of those, and Apricot Rail to a lesser extent. And then this year we have Umpire and Mukazaki, who are pretty much the same band. One member drops out. Josh drops out of Umpire, and Dan steps into Mukazaki.
Is it wrong to say I'm looking forward to Umpire the most then?
That's fun.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll be okay with that. And, you know, that's weird even talking to those guys. They now all have kids and all have different things. So 10 years ago, they'd want to be the last band playing. And this year, they're like, oh, can we finish at 5:30 so we can get home to the kids, which is a great thing. And that, you know, kids come down to In the Pines and they enjoy it and they watch it. And big kids, little kids, in between kids, it's great. I think one of the great things is if you go to, say, a Falls Festival or Splendid in the Grass, it's predominantly people under the age of 25 or under the age of 28 or so. But In the Pines has a vast gamut, like all of our gigs, has a vast gamut of people. You know, even the Foreign Minister came last year, which is interesting. I don't know if she'll come again this year, but the people that come to In the Pines are a wonderful cross-section of not only RTR's community, but as a side note, Perth's community and Perth's arts and music world.
And genre-wise, it's been all over the shop in the most delightful way.
And also this year, weirdly, Mathis is probably the first hip-hop band to play in the Pines, in the purest sense of hip-hop. Power Negro played last year, and they're sort of in that sort of cross-section. But as a pure hip-hop performer, Mathis is probably the first one we've had in the Pines. Because for a long time we had Seriously Sound System. It was kind of, Pines was indie, Seriously Sound System was dance. But that's silly, really, in reality, because it's music and it's a snapshot of WA music, and Mathis is a wonderful part of that. So
yeah, for sure.
That's why he's playing.
I remember one year, about 2000 or something, there was in Hackett Hall, there was like a DJ thing. I think it only happened once because it just kind of pulled the crowd apart a little bit. Maybe.
I remember that too.
Yeah, and
it was good though.
Hackett Hall, from all accounts, was not in a good state afterwards. So I don't think you know.
Oh dear.
I don't remember that part.
It was fine. Like it wasn't destroyed, but it was a bit dirty and a bit messy. And,
I recall fondly sharing a split with General Justice at Hackett Hall.
It's a pretty mature audience that we have. We go from, you know, primary school kids to station's been around for 40 years and people have been listening that whole time. We still fill that space. But I don't think at 1994's In the Pines that we had kids with headphones on to keep the noise out, which I suspect we'll have a few of this year. The babes in arms with the little headphones, that's a new kind of part of the rock scene.
Yes,
I think it is very much the last couple of years. I remember a story of the Tigers, which is Chris Cavillas's band, and Guy Howlett's band. They couldn't come because they were underage, so they called up whoever was in charge and said, can we clean the stage? Can that be like our way to get in? So they actually created the Tigers cleaning service with a vacuum cleaner, and they came and cleaned the stage after each band in order to get into In the Pines because they were underage.
So inventive, those boys. I recall a Malibu surfboard being set on fire by
Cheetah 5.
Cheetah 5,
Yeah.
Kent Turkic.
And a bin was set on fire at one point by them, I think.
Was there a fist fight in the early days?
I accidentally punched some poor guy in the jaw by giving directions to somebody. And it's possibly the only incident of near violence at In the Pines.
Well, it's your joke, but it's actually correct. I've been involved in the Pines since 2006, 2005. As a volunteer, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone. I think I've seen a couple of people removed because they were just had a little bit too much to drink, and they quietly went on their way.
Okay.
Then okay, yeah, cool.
I think there might have been some podium injuries over time, people dancing with their hands in the air and then falling down, or maybe a bit of whiplash from some, headbanging.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Well, I promise I'll try and keep myself in check this year.
Sort yourself out. Yeah.
Yes. And so look, the lineup. There's all sorts, really, isn't there? There's old favourites. Not that they like the word old.
Yes,
but
there is.
Dear favourites.
Dear favourites.
It's sort of In the Pines is one of those things that's not. It's not in. I book it and I manage it and run it, but it's not my baby. It's a combined effort from a number of different people around RTRFM in the WA music scene. We all get together early January and chat about who should play Pines. And the list is usually pretty easily put together because it's who's done great things throughout the year, and who's available, who's around. who's not off touring the world or doing other things. But this,
Well, it's always at the same time, so you would keep that weekend
Yeah.
kind of free if you could.
some bands do, and it's one of those, you send an email about this to bands, and some other gigs will be like, oh, I don't know, but this one is always a definite yes if they can.
Yeah. So from Abby May, Bolt Gun, Demon Days, M Burrows, Lucy Peach having great years,
Yeah.
doing good things. Sex Panther, back.
Yep.
The Tommy Hawks, who just seem to be touring nationally.
Yeah, they
always.
tour a whole heap, and they Ness from Jebediah is also in the Tommy Hawks, so they sometimes do tours together just so that Ness can play 2 shows because she just loves playing bass.
That is so good.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the lineup, and it's happening on Sunday, April 29 at the Somerville Auditorium,
Yep.
the spiritual home, and that's about that.
It is.
What do you say?
Yeah, grab your tickets and come along. If you've never been to one, it's a great thing to do, and it's one of those things that I think once people go to one, they usually go to all of them.
I've been
afterwards.
to all except 2.
Yes.
So
Lorraine Clifford has worked at all of them.
all of them.
Except one, because she had a heart attack 2 weeks beforehand, but she still came. And right now
Oh.
she's on crutches. She had a bit of a mishap last year, and she's still recovering from that. But she's going to do a couple of hours behind the bar.
Not going to stop her. Has bad weather ever stopped you, Bob?
In general.
In the Pines?
And in the Pines? Oh, no. Oh, it was, sometimes there's been a bit of a worry about how the weather would be.
The music
but-
gods shine upon us.
Yeah, but I don't think it's never
It's
stopped.
usually a bit of a sprinkle, but
Bring a flanny.
Yeah.
I think Little Birdie played one once in the rain.
yeah.
Poetic.
A couple of years ago, Peter Bibby played when it was pissing down, but then when he finished and Grace Barbe played it, the skies cleared and it was wonderful.
It's mythical and religious
It is.
and special.
It's got to be. You got to be part of it to understand. So come on down and enjoy the 25th in the Pines before we go do another 25.
Okay, well, thank you, Danae and Chief, for having me in your house.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Cooper.
And on your counter.
The 4th wall.
You look good there, Bob.
I feel good there, Danae.